Good morning, Pete Iorizzo. How are you?
Hey, good morning, Roger. I actually might want to take the first one back. After watching UConn live, I'm actually not sure it was ever possible.
Yeah. I never thought for even a split second that UAlbany would win that game. First of all, the UAlbany team's not as good as they were last year with Iorizzo Richards and Zakiya Saunders, and I think Coach Mack did a phenomenal job just to get them back to the NCAA tournament, and then to have to be a 16 seed and play UConn was impossible. But, yeah, give me your thoughts here on now having a chance to watch this UConn team play.
It's just they're just unbelievable to watch. I mean, the first quarter, I thought Albany acquitted themselves about as well as they possibly could have. I don't know if, given the daunting challenge that they faced, they could have played any better, really, than they did in the first quarter. And what was the score? What were they down at the end of the first quarter, by 19?
Yeah, 19 and down 26 at the half. And I even said at halftime, you know what? Down 26, that's a pretty good showing. I thought UAlbany did some good things. Jessica Feckier had 13 points. She was making a few shots. Amani Tate was trying to do her best. I mean, I thought they were doing a pretty good job. But then it almost looked like Gino Auriemma, the 32-year head coach at UConn, just had his players turn it up even a notch more in the third quarter.
Yeah, and they're down 26, and they had a couple runs in there in the first half, too. I think maybe 9-1 at one point, 7-0 at one point. So they're down 26 with a couple of runs thrown in there. The most amazing thing to me is just, it's like every time Albany missed a shot, it was an uncontested layup at the other end for UConn. That's how fast they capitalize on mistakes and how fast they score in transition. It's like missed shot, bang, UConn has an uncontested layup within 7 or 8 seconds. It was really, if you missed on the offensive end, or if UConn grabbed if UConn grabbed a rebound or there was a turnover, you basically had no chance to stop them from scoring at the other end.
And they have their top player is a sophomore. Her name is Katie Lou Samuelson, 6'3" sophomore from Huntington Beach, California, and she actually had an off night. I can't imagine what this score would have been had she made threes. I don't have the final stat sheet in front of me, but this young lady is more than capable of like making threes like every time she shoots one, and she got open looks and missed. So I don't know what it was. She came in averaging 21 a game, but this team, sophomore in the starting lineup, 2 sophomores, 2 juniors, and only 1 senior in the starting lineup, Pete Iorizzo.
Yeah, I know. It just there's no end to it in sight, and really, when you see them in person, it really gives you an appreciation for the kind of dynasty that they've built. I mean, it's almost like they're playing a different game than everybody else is. To me, it's really something to watch.
And I think Coach Mack, after the game, was obviously her team gave a lot of effort. And even Coach Gino Auriemma praised UA for how hard they played and start to finish. I think she was probably in the back of her mind thinking that even in the second half they could have done a little bit better job and not gotten blown out by 61.
Probably, but I mean, realistically, if they had done a little bit better job, what are you looking at, a deficit of 45, 50? I mean,
covering the spread, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much academic at that point anyway. UConn definitely started fast. I think they have a 9-0 run, I think, to open the third quarter.
They did.
And if I remember right, I think they scored those 9 points too in something like 80 seconds, or maybe even less. I remember it was fast. But that's what happens. You come out and you miss a couple shots, and before you know it, UConn scored 10 already.
Well, look, I don't know what UConn. I mean, UConn is going to be a tough out, and they're not going to have to leave. They're going to have to leave the state of Connecticut to get to the Final Four. I mean, they've got the home base advantage throughout here. I mean, look, Notre Dame can beat them. There's probably 2 or 3 teams that on a given night, if UConn's not playing great, that they can lose, but. There's the majority. That's what I said about UAlbany. Don't feel badly about losing to UConn and getting blown out. Because you know what? UConn blew out South Florida 100 and something to 45 in the championship game of their conference. So if you're UAlbany, just join the long list of teams that get blown out by UConn.
Yeah, the score last year when they, I think Robert Morris was the 16th seed they faced. After one quarter, it was 41-4.
Yeah. And I love Gino. I love the comments, Pete, because you were out there and talking with Albany Athletic Department people, and they were all saying, what a great guy Gino Auriemma is. He's shaking hands, everybody. He's talking to my partner, Charlie Volker, and making happy talk and all of that. And I said, yeah, just wait until you get to Saturday when he's beating your brains in by 100, not calling off the dogs. Then we'll see how nice of a guy Gino Auriemma really is, you know?
You know, it was interesting though. I don't know if you're in there for Coach Mack's post-game press conference. Somebody asked her about that, you know, whether she had any issue with him, as you said, not calling off the dogs. And she pointed out that he does in very subtle ways. She pointed out, you know, there was one chance where it looked like they could have forced Albany into a shot clock violation, and it looked like he, you know, backed off his defense for a second and let them continue on with the possession. She said there were a few examples of little things like that, you know, where he wanted the possession to continue because he wanted his team to play some defense. It was interesting. I hadn't noticed that watching the game, because when you're watching the game, all you see is the fact that, you know, obviously the starters were in until there was about 5 minutes left, and he did back off the press really in the second half, but they're definitely still firing three-pointers in the fourth quarter. But yeah, she said if you're watching closely, subtly, there were signs that he was backing it off a little bit. And you know, in some ways, I do think it's hard to, you know, it's a 50-point game, but you know, what are you supposed to do? You know, sometimes it's more insulting to your opponent if you go to the four corners offense, you know, with when you still have a quarter and a half to play. It's a difficult thing to handle, I think, if you're Gino Auriemma.
Well, and truth be told, you can bring the second and third teamers off this bench for UConn. They're still going to win by 20. I mean, that's the reality.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you know, when he could have pulled his starters probably at the end of the first quarter if he had wanted to. But you know, I'm not sure if that's the right way to play the game either, because if he took his starters out at the end of the first quarter every time he could, I mean, he'd be doing that. You know, if they play 35 games, he'd probably be doing it in 25 of them.
Yeah, and they're not, and you know what? There is something to be said for running your offense and getting your starters the minutes they need to get them better, because eventually they are going to face tougher competition, and I get all that. And really, with 5 minutes to go, he did go to his bench. Now, he always kept a couple of his prominent players, you know, out there along with the three that probably don't play much at all. But in all fairness, about 5 minutes to go, he did say this thing is over, obviously, and we'll go ahead and play some of the young ladies here who don't get an opportunity. But overall, I guess you just write it off for UA as a good experience. Somebody said to me last week when I said, why would you want to play UConn? And the response was, look, if you're going to be a 16 seed, if that's the seed you're going to get, you might as well go play the very best and at least chalk this thing up, Pete, as to an unbelievable experience, one that these Albany women will never forget.
It's true, really. I mean, you're the only game on TV in that time slot on Saturday, so the whole country gets to watch you. You know, you have seniors who want to play professionally. Here's a chance for scouts to see them go up against the very highest level of competition. I think you're right. I think there is something to be gained from playing UConn. Obviously, the scoreboard's not going to look pretty at the end of the game, but I don't think anybody's ever going to hold that against you. And, you know, as I said, if you're another 16 seed or even a 15 seed, realistically, your odds of winning the game are very slim anyway. So you may as well play UConn and get the exposure that comes with it.
Pete Iorizzo joins us every Monday morning. Great job. Good seeing you this weekend, Pete. And we'll talk this time next week. I mean, Union hockey might be the focal point here now for the local sports team moving forward. See how deep of a run they can make in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, it was a shame that they, I think if they had maybe gotten to the ECAC finals, I think they had a chance to stay on the East Coast, which would have made it a little easier for the fans to go and see them. So.
Now they got to go to Cincinnati and play the mighty Penn State Lions, baby. Don't think that's going to be a cakewalk there, Coach Bennett. All right. Hey, Pete, always a pleasure. Thanks a lot for coming on the Monday show.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Roger. Have a good week.